So you're wondering, how do I increase my feminine energy? I'm going to share some practices and new ways of being so that you can experience more flow, more freedom, more joy, and more receptivity in your feminine energy. How to embody more of that feminine energy. And the reason we might want to embody more of that feminine energy is especially if we're feeling exhausted or overwhelmed or overworked. From a very young age, I was a little overachiever. My parents are Cuban immigrants. They came from Cuba after the revolution and they lost everything. My dad's family lost everything. And so my dad had a very strong belief system that you had to work really hard in order to make money and create stability. And even if you worked really, really hard, it could all be gone in any moment. So you had to be ready to hustle and do hard work and get things done. He came from a very masculine, energetic inside of a culture and a society that was also very masculine and very focused on success and achievement. So from a very young age, I was a straight A student. I did everything that I was supposed to do, and I got my needs met. So I did all the things, and I spent my whole life in this hustle, hard work mode. And about 5 years ago, I crashed. It was completely unsustainable for my body to operate for as long as it did in that way. I never relaxed. I never calmed down. Always on, always working. And even if I wasn't working, I was thinking about work or feeling guilty about not working. And so as an entrepreneur, this eventually led to not only a personal breakdown and a health breakdown, but also an emotional and a business breakdown. Because finally, when I finally did crash, my whole business crashed and burned with it. But I had to adopt a more feminine approach to business. I had to change my life and my business to have more of the feminine energetic. And the way I did that was by adopting feminine practices. So the feminine is more of the receptivity piece. Some of the practices that I adopted that have really transformed my energy and the energy of my business and had incredible outcomes were practices of receptivity practices and stillness practices. So I'll give you some examples. These days, I do a morning ritual every day. And in that morning ritual, the first thing I do is I wake up and I just journal and I receive the downloads that have come to me through the night, through my dreams, through those thoughts that are happening right as you're on the verge of sleep and wakefulness. I just sit and I listen and I receive those messages. And those messages come from deep, deep within me. And for a long time, I ignored all those deep, deep within me messages. And those deep within me messages are that feminine intuition and that feminine awareness that I had been shutting out in favor of books and learning and workbooks and structure and all of that stuff. And so these practices of listening deeply to myself and also starting to listen deeply to others. So a new way of being with other people, a new way of connecting. We know now that the heart has wisdom. Science is showing us that the heart has wisdom. And in the world that's been masculine dominated, that heart wisdom has gotten sort of suppressed a little bit. These feminine practices are opening, which is another very feminine word and practice, opening to the mysteries, opening to the unknown, listening deeply to ourselves, listening deeply to each other. Another practice is the practice of surrender. When I talk about surrender, people can get the wrong idea because surrender sometimes gets associated, especially in a masculine paradigm, with giving up. And I don't mean surrender in the concept of giving up. I mean surrender in the concept of allowing and allowing life, receiving life. Think of it as the distinction between taking an inhale, right? Because inhale is the receptive, and receiving an inhale. Right? It's a slight distinction. It's very emblematic or descriptive of this more feminine way of approaching life and surrendering and allowing what is to happen. And so if you think about life as a river, right, we can choose to fight against life and control all the outcomes and fight with the professor and get the A. And we could also choose to relax and surrender to whatever is already happening. And appreciation is another big time feminine practice. Appreciation is like the final stage of full receptivity. It's not just receiving the experience, it's not just allowing an experience, it's not even just accepting the experience, but it's fully appreciating the experience. And I found that this appreciation practice, which I also have a morning ritual practice around fostering appreciation, is one of the best ways to amplify our ability to manifest what we want in life. Just to remind you, how would life look if we started to surrender and allow and appreciate it rather than fighting the current all the time? So there are 4 practices that I want to share with you for specifically how to embody more feminine energy. The first practice is a practice of stillness, getting quiet and listening deeply to yourself, and also listening deeply to what's happening around you and what you can receive from the world around you. The second practice is of deep listening to other people and really connecting to people heart to heart and really listening from your heart. The third practice is self-care. And when I talk about self-care, I'm not talking about manis and petties and blowouts. I'm talking about deep, deep self-care that comes from really being with your true emotions. A lot of times, a lot of us, me included, try to avoid or ignore or power through negative emotions. And the final practice, and perhaps the most important one, is aligning with nature's rhythms. We live in a world where we are completely disconnected a lot of times from nature. And that's part of this masculine patriarchal dominance, right? Of overpowering nature, planting things and farming and changing the way the land is, right? And living in environments where we don't have to be connected to the seasons anymore. We've got air conditioning and we've got heaters and we've got indoor plumbing, all of which is awesome, don't get me wrong. But we're not necessarily very in touch with nature's rhythms anymore. And so one of the best practices that as women and men that we can do to foster more alignment with the feminine is to connect more deeply with Mother Nature, to take our shoes off and walk in the grass and feel the dirt underneath our feet, or feel the sand at the beach, to dive in the waters of the ocean, to come outside when it's a full moon and breathe in the full moon, and also come outside when it's a new moon and there's no moon, and pay attention to the feeling that's different. So aligning with nature's rhythms and the seasons especially is another way to really tap into that feminine nature and receptivity. So if you like this idea of feminine energy and you're curious about how to open up to more feminine energy inside of your business and aligning what you do with who you really are and how you want to be in this more flowy and flexible way, then go ahead and click on the link below and download my Monetize Your Magic playlist. I know you're going to love it. See you next time.